I wanted to talk today a little bit about modern day slavery. It's been a topic heavy or on my heart quite a lot over the last, um, I guess, I think 20 since 2013. So it's about 7 years since I really kind of was brought to the awareness of modern day slavery in our world. And I was like, I thought that we ended slavery with the end of the slave trade and the abolishment of slavery in the 1800s with William Wilberforce and others after him. But no, currently today, there is about 33 million. I have some slides I can share later, but there's about 36 million slaves currently in some form, some percentage, mostly in the sex trafficking industry, but then also labor slavery as well. And like that's a staggering number of people, that there's almost 40 million people still in slavery. And there's about 2 million that are exploited in the slave trade. And like outside of this as well, there's about 4 billion people that aren't within the protection of the law. And so that they're at risk of slavery. Those are just like some initial statistics. Just the reality of like, oh, there's 36 million slaves. It's like, how can we fight to end this? But thanks, Juliana, I can actually share some stuff. But I'm kind of going off with a bunch of different slides and things, so I'll mostly talk. But that kind of can be daunting, just how much injustice there is, but there is a lot of work being done to counter it. And there is slavery in every country, basically. There is even the human trafficking in Canada, but I think there's about 60 organizations around the world that are working intentionally in fighting human trafficking and protecting people from getting caught in human trafficking, and also rescuing victims and restoring them, and then also bringing criminals to justice. And so there are organizations like International Justice Mission and Exodus Cry, if you've heard of them. There's also Ratanak International, there's A21, and there's a whole lot of other organizations, especially even some in Canada locally. There's an organization, a wonderful organization called Bridge North, that works here in Toronto, Greater Toronto area, that really helps restore survivors of slavery. And there's so much good work that is being done in this. And I think more of my interest in like this presentation was just to be like, this is a thing that's heavy on my heart. And if it's something that you guys know about as well, and is on your heart, to know that there is people working against it and there's ways to be involved. And so like I've often had questions myself of like, how can we be involved and how can we actually be engaging in the fight for justice? And there's ways of like being involved in organizations or like in chapters, volunteering and raising awareness and funds. For example, I'm wearing a tie every day of December. It's called a fundraiser called Dressember. So you can look that up if you're interested in Google, and it's all over the place. Dressember. So all the gals are wearing dresses and all the guys don't have to wear dresses, so they can wear ties. And just as kind of a conversation starter, like you're dressed up formally. And as a conversation starter, like, oh, I'm doing this to raise awareness for slavery, but also to kind of raise awareness that we can think differently in the way we shop as well. So that's the whole thing about Dressember, is that fast fashion has roots within labor trafficking or just poor employment conditions for people. And so to really think fair trade of like, oh, what organizations am I buying from? And to think through that of how can I support locally, and how can I actively with my purchases try and counter the human trafficking industry. But anyway, those are kind of some of my thoughts, and there is a lot of hope there's a lot of really good news. If you guys have seen in the news, Exodus Cry has been pushing for about a long time that Pornhub, which is a pornography website, would take down a whole bunch of videos that were not legal and not safe and were human trafficking videos, and MasterCard and Visa pulled their support, and they've actually shut or pulled off about 3/4 of their videos, over 10 million, which is really awesome. And other news, the Ontario government just decided to support about 30 different organizations in human trafficking, counter human trafficking work and rescuing work, about 46 million to them, which is so good. And so Bridge North is one of them. And there's a lot of really good work, and we can do that locally as well, and just by raising awareness and joining different initiatives and clubs. Yeah, I can also post in the chat a bunch of different organizations. If you're like, oh, this is something that I'm interested in and want to take part, you're welcome to. But my presentation is very much just like a info of like, this is a hard reality, but then at the same time, there's a lot of hope in restoration and pursuing justice.
Yeah, and I guess one of the things that stood out to me, because also just if you want to list off some of the organizations, because I think the recording won't show some of them, because I don't think the chat is shown for that. But the other thing that I was thinking about when you were talking about fast fashion and how that connects to slavery as well, like as we're moving very closely to the holidays and to gift giving season, and then of course next year, like with other gifts and just in the future in general, like is there anything to really, like, is there a quick tip or something to be conscious of in terms of how to think about what you're buying or what you're consuming, and to be able to like process that?
I honestly am not most knowledgeable in that, other than supporting local is very, like, you can be a lot more sure of where you're purchasing things from. Like less so big business, and like there are good industry. Like I think it's more this takes your own research. I can talk with my team, my IGM team, and actually figure out if there is like an anthology of fair trade websites. If you actually look up fair trade, that's the classification for good goods and whatever. And so anything that's fair trade is not fast fashion, and is good wages and everything, good employment conditions. But yeah, I don't have an anthology with me, but then you can just look it up and I can actually see if I can find them.
Yeah, and if you want to share that, that would be great. Also, in terms of fair trade, I know some communities have become fair trade. Hudson, Quebec, for example, or Wakefield, Quebec as well. Those are the two that come to my mind right away. But like they have a sign that says "Welcome to Wakefield," and then there's a sign that says "Fair Trade." So I think in those kind of communities, I don't know if it's that they focus on local products or if they like try and make sure that their products that are more international are fair trade. But I do know that like the community has put up that sign with the purpose of having it be fair trade. So it's nice to be able to see those movements, and I feel like reaching out to some of the organizations that you've shared will be able to help sort of see where, like, to find it more, I guess. But are there like the top 3 organizations that you'd recommend to like start with for that?
With respect to fair trade or the human trafficking whole?
I guess like in general, because I know
in general,
some with the chat.
So in general, I put International Justice Mission. Definitely, they are a pretty good place to look. A21 as well. Exodus Cry is very specifically focused on cyber sex trafficking. That's what, and sex trafficking as well. So that's their focus. International Justice Mission is a whole focus, as well as A21.
That's great.
And Bridge North is really cool. They're local.
Oh, they're local. Cool. That's nice. Yeah, well, that definitely gives some options for searching beyond. And Thank you for your presentation.